Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of ARCA Racing Podcast Driver Interviews. We have a great show for you guys tonight. We have ARCA driver and former Jackman Tony Cosentino on the show. As always, before we get into everything, follow me on Twitter at StartandParkArt and follow ARCA Racing at ARCA_Racing. Before we do start tonight's show, though, I do want to send all my condolences to the Keselowski family. Legendary racer Bob Keselowski lost his battle with cancer. And for that, I would like to have a moment of silence. Thank you guys for participating in that. Let's get into the fun interview. How are you doing tonight, Tony?
Great. Yourself?
Good to see you too, man, and glad you're doing all right. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Always
so
fun.
My first question I wanted to get to is, how would you evaluate overall your 2021 season?
It was definitely more than I expected it to be. Definitely wanted more, but more than I expected it to be for sure. Going into Daytona 2021 wasn't sure what we were doing.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to. Is like, was the plan to run that many races in 2021, or was it just like a couple of starting parks?
It wasn't in the plan at all at the beginning of the season. It was kind of the midway part of the season. Got a phone call.
The good old phone call.
Yeah.
So, what's it like running in the ARCA series compared to other series you've raced in? Is it the biggest series you've ever raced in?
Yes. ARCA is definitely the biggest I've raced in. Cars are fun, like the horsepower, as compared to late models, and I like the bigger tracks. But always will love short track racing, late model racing, pro late model racing.
So, with all the tracks you have been on, come from your late model days to your ARCA days, even though you may have done some starting parks on those, what overall would you say is your favorite racetrack you've raced on?
Any of them that lets you
any
be a race car driver. Yes, I mean Winchester was awesome. We got to race the whole race at Winchester. Even though we got to, it was a starting park at Kansas. Kansas was a blast. As well as short track stuff like Orange County and Ace Speedway. Hickory's always fun to go to. All the tracks. I love all of them.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Keep
going.
Mid-Ohio?
Mid-Ohio. Yeah, that one's near and dear to the heart. That one's home for me.
Yeah, I've gotten quite a few answers of Winchester, and it actually does lead me into another question I was going to ask you, but we'll get into it right now. After doing all the starting parks earlier in the season, how did it feel being allowed to do a full race, especially at a very challenging racetrack?
It feels good. And, you always kind of wonder how it will go if you ran the whole thing. You bring it in, you're like, well, I could have did this, I could have did that, but you don't know until you run the whole thing. So we just stuck to our game plan and kept it clean and ran the whole thing and got a solid finish out of it. So
it was
everything.
Did you have to do the whole race on one set, or did you guys actually have tires to use?
No, we had tires.
Okay, good.
That wasn't a track we were going to attempt on old tires all day.
Yeah. Okay, that was good because I was worried in that race because I didn't know if Andy had any extra money for tires, but I was glad about that.
Yeah, and we had some sponsors that helped us with that, so that made it a lot better.
Good. So I want to take you back to some of your early NASCAR days when it was actually called the K&N Series before it was merged with ARCA. Talk to me about those, if you can remember back as far. Talk to me about those three races back in 2019 and how that whole deal came about with the Sue McCartney Kart Idaho team.
That was I forget how I got introduced to John Wood. He's the owner of the team.
Yep.
But he said, come on out, and he knew I was willing to work on the cars, and we went out there, and it was challenging because it just a lower amount of people, even lower amount of people than Andy's team. Mm-hmm. But we got to run the whole thing when we could, and definitely honored for the opportunity for it. I wouldn't have got the phone call this year if it wasn't for those three starts in 2019.
One of the things that actually intrigued me about looking at those three starts is, and I hope I had some people asking about it when I asked them about questions to ask you. They said Joe Rogan was on this car. How did that sponsorship come about?
I think that was actually a misprint. That was yeah. So Joe Rogan was a sponsor on our other car, who was Taylor Canfield.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he is Joe Rogan's bodyguard or on a security team of some sort.
Really?
He's friends with him. Yes, so that's how that one came about, and I think it kind of got mixed up in translation somewhere. I think we ended up switching numbers like 3 times before the race, and that's how it got jumbled up there.
Yeah, because I've seen pictures of you running a 36, a 39 with a little bit of like duct tape number manufacturing.
Yeah, it was always tight on time, and it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything that was wrong with what was going on out there. It was just a people thing, that kind of deal.
So after those 2 starts in a Toyota, you went to Phoenix later that year in 19 with the Chevrolet, and was it a struggle with that race? Because I remember following you on Facebook, and it seemed that the car was just not ready, but like your cup team that you were working for at the time, like really stepped up.
Yeah, and that was kind of the plan the whole way along, is they were going to everybody was already going out there for the swing, and they were going to kind of help out. We were trying to get the car ready earlier, and I think the car we brought, I don't remember how it all played out, but we ended up not getting out there till a little later. We found some issues with the car at the parking lot of our hotel in Phoenix. It was a mad thrash to get everything out there, but we got it good, and we got it handling okay, and then we had a motor go away about halfway through, I think.
And but to that point in 2019, was that the biggest field you had ever raced in terms of cars? 25?
How many was in that?
25.
25? I think, if not close to it. I've been in some bigger late model races where there's been some pretty decent car counts, but close to it, if not the most, yes.
Even though you've done a lot of like starting parks, when you do have the chance to run the full race, and this can go back to 2019 as well, did you ever have like a rival on track you wanted to beat?
No, not necessarily. Yeah. I just try to race everybody with respect. Yeah. I've always been a fan of Mark Martin, and Mark Martin raced everybody clean all the time, and I kind of would like to model myself that way.
Very respectful, man.
Yeah.
One of the questions I was always curious on, from what I've always watched, when I watched this year with ARCA, did Andy ever have a preference of which car he wanted to fall out first? Like, was there ever an order of the starting parks that he wanted, or was it just you kind of just call each other off the track?
He probably had an order, but it wasn't an order that we knew of until we got the call.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it just, he's a busy man, so he's got a lot going on. Yeah. He'll let us know.
Yeah, because I was up there at Iowa, and it just and then we had, I think it was Stephanie pulled off first, and then you pulled off, and then the 10-11 ran the whole thing. But yeah, I was always wondering, like, it seemed like the 0-1 would be the one that would always pull in first from what I always saw. And that actually,
and it's definitely probably something to do with points on the number. Yeah. So,
and one of the things I wanted to get into, speaking of 0-1, what ended up happening at Michigan?
I'm not sure. I think it was something with the fuel system. We couldn't get it to pump fuel. Just couldn't get it to run. But, it was one of them gremlins that you run it in the shop right before you load it in the trailer. You put it in the trailer, you get it to the racetrack, and for some reason it doesn't run. So,
did you even get to make a lap?
No, not that day. No.
For as far as back as you can remember, what do you believe is like the oldest chassis you have ran from your late model days or your ARCA days?
Probably my first late model. I couldn't even guess how old that thing was. But We went out there and at Hickory Motor Speedway 2014, and I think we were a lap down in like 8 laps. So it wasn't the most fun start. Granted, I had no idea what the heck I was doing with the cars, no idea what I was buying when I bought the car. So we were just winging it and learning as we went.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to start somewhere, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, speaking of the late model team, go ahead and tell me, like, could you give us like a quick overview of your late model team in general and what's it about?
Yeah, we started as the driver development team, so honestly, so it could help fund me building a better race team. I couldn't essentially build it all on my own with my own money, and I had the equipment sitting there. So I had an opportunity with a kid that came along and said, "Hey, I want to race," and that started that way. And now we have EJ Tamayo. He's running full time in the Carolina Pro Late Model Series for us next year, and a lot of interest in some other drivers this year. So pretty excited about that. ARCA schedule, Carolina Pro schedule, the Cars Tour schedule all lines up really well. If all goes according to plan, I can race a whole ton.
That's great. And actually, that does lead me into a question with your team. How many cars do you currently have?
We currently have 2. We're going to expand. Just kind of playing the game as it comes. Yeah. You know.
What's is it a super late model?
It's pro late model.
Pro late model.
Yep.
What's the biggest? So like we've seen like the Snowball Derby and like the other. What's the big race of the year for the pro late models?
Yeah, the Snowflake.
Oh, the Snowflake 100.
Yep. Yeah. But there's a big. Just about all the big super late model races have a pro late model race.
Would you?
The Cars Tour. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I interrupt. Sorry. You go.
Yeah. So the Cars Tour, they're doing the pro late models this year. That's going to be a pretty good show, I think. And the Carolina Pro Late Model Series is just a really cool series. It helps more lower budgeted teams race competitively with really cool fast cars, you know?
Yeah. Are you going to try to focus more on ARCA driving or late model driving or pretty much whenever you can?
I am going to focus on driving, period. So anytime I'm in the car, we're going to focus on that lap, the next lap, being faster than the last week. That's whether it be I'm in the late model this week and ARCA next week. We're going to be focused 100% on being the best driver I can be.
Good. Let's see here. Oh yeah. So like I also mentioned at the beginning of this, for the people who might not know, outside of driving and being a team owner, you've actually done some pit crew jobs for racing. Why don't you go ahead and explain to everyone watching what all you have done in terms of the pit crew side of your career?
Pit crew side, I was a Jackman most of the time. I started way back, but I was a Jackman in the Cup Series for 7 years. Enjoyed every minute of it. It was the hardest job to quit I've ever quit. Mainly the people. All my friends and everybody we competed against and everything was really fun. You know, we'd do a pit stop and we'd look up and down pit road and see what everybody else is doing. So it was a really fun thing. But it was something that was keeping me out of the seat. Yeah. And I knew we had to make an adjustment if I wanted to continue to drive.
Could you also give us maybe some of the teams that you had worked for?
I was on, let's see here. I started, man, I've been on a ton of teams. I was on Tony Stewart's car for a year as backup. Same with Danica Patrick for a year as backup. And then I was with Cole Witt for a season on the 72 TriStar car. I was with Rick Ware for the last few years in the Cup Series. Did a lot of pitting for Mario Gosselin. Got to pit a couple races for Gibbs in the Xfinity Series. Who else? Thor Sport. Had a lot of races with Thor Sport. Cody Coughlin and Myatt Snyder and a couple others over there. I can't even think of everybody else. There's been so many. Corey Roper, all kinds of them.
Did you ever get to go to Victory Lane?
Yeah, plenty.
Oh, okay,
A lot
good.
in the ARCA series.
What's your most memorable win, I would say?
Probably Michigan on Father's Day weekend. It was an ARCA race. I forget who was driving it. I think it was an MDM car or
Brandon
a
Jones?
Mason Mitchell car. Yeah, Brandon Jones. Was that MDM or
That was the
Mason
was
Mitchell?
it the Ream car or the Menards car?
Ream car.
Ream car. Okay, yeah. So that would have been Brandon Jones. Yeah, Michigan. So yeah.
Yeah, so that race, my dad used to take me there, me and my little brother when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go to Victory Lane at Michigan, on Father's Day weekend. So that was pretty cool.
Was he there?
No, he wasn't.
Oh.
Yeah, and then when the car didn't run at Michigan this year, it kind of stung a little bit. But we were planning on starting parking that one.
Yeah.
Hopefully next year we're not planning on starting parking, and old dad can go to that one.
So you're definitely at least going to try to run the Michigan ARCA race next year?
Yeah, we're going to try and run as many as we can. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Working on funding, obviously.
I was also one of my ARCA buddies and I were also wondering, in terms of the cars that you do run for Andy, do you know the history of those cars at all? Like, are they old Venerini cars by chance?
There's cars from a little bit of here and a little bit of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I've ran cars from MDM. I've ran cars from I'm not 100% sure where a bunch of them have came from, to be honest. But I know that it has good clips put on them when something happens and all the good parts. So when we can get the funding put together, we can run good.
Yeah, well, some of my favorite conversations are at the track with Dick when just trying to ask where are these cars from. He's like, oh, hey, I don't know. I love Dick.
Yeah, Dick's a good guy.
All right. Let's see. Next question. That one. Oh yeah. So despite only doing a start and park at Mid Ohio and only getting to run the caution laps, do you have a preference of tracks that you like run on? Do you prefer a road course, a short track, or an intermediate? If you had the chance to run the whole race, would you prefer a short track, a intermediate, or a road course?
Well, I think I don't know. I feel like I'm more comfortable on short tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a lot more laps on short tracks, so when I jump in the car at a short track, I feel like I can do what the car's maximum is as soon as I get out there. Where Kansas, I had to feel it a little more. Charlotte, I had to feel it a little bit more. And I got a lot of laps at Mid Ohio as well. But it's a totally different kind of car than I've ever been in before. So, I mean, I feel like I could probably do the best at short tracks. But growing as a driver, I really want to run as many intermediate and road course tracks as I can. That way I get that comfort level the same way across the board, not just at the short tracks.
One question that I really did want to ask you regarding this year is that you ran a lot of Toyotas this year. Was that the same car for every race?
No, that was a couple different cars. Yeah.
I just saw when I was there, I just saw like the bruise box on the side. I just thought it was like maybe the same car.
No, it was. Andy has a lot of Toyota cars.
Yeah. Also, so you mentioned like for 2022, we'll get into that kind of as the last question. Right now, you kind of explained earlier what 2022. So from your side and the team side, what are your aspirations right now for 2022? If you want to explain that just a little bit more.
I'd like to run the entire ARCA season. I'd like to. I'd also like to run as many late model races as possible, and just looking at the schedule, not counting any marquee races like the Snowflake or any of those other bigger races, or even a truck debut. It looks like I could do like 40 races, so it could be a very busy schedule, and definitely good for a sponsor, a partner. Yeah. A lot of racing going on.
Are you going to be at the Daytona test in January?
Yes.
Driving or crewing?
Both.
Yes. Can you, if you don't mind me asking, can you give us an insight of maybe how? We always know Andy brings a lot of cars and drivers to that event. Do you know how many cars right now he might be bringing?
I do not know.
Dang.
I do not know.
Yeah, I figured I'd ask that question, see if we could get a little bit of insight. But now we'll do a whole episode on that later. So a couple more questions here. So we've seen the 2022 schedule. Obviously, you said you'd like to run the full season. I'd love for you to run the full season, but if you unfortunately cannot, what are some of the key races that you would at least hope to get into 2022?
Michigan's on the list for sure. All the short tracks are on the list for sure. In Mid-Ohio, those are definitely ones that I want to hit for sure. So pretty good majority of the season.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. My last question for you is then, so going into 2022, expectations of the team in terms of performance. What are you expecting in terms of performance out of the team?
I expect we're going to wow some people this year.
Yeah.
If we can get some partners behind us and we can get some brands on the hood, I think we're gonna open some eyes, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, we're definitely wishing you the best of luck there. Before we let you out of here, would you like to give a shout out to anyone or any sponsors real quick on the show?
Yeah, Pitweld U and Carolina SimWorks for their simulators. Amazing stuff. So my wife.
And of course, a good old shout out to my good buddy at the racetrack, John Schultzke and Andy Hillenberg.
Yes.
All right. So thank you for coming on the show. Tony, we love you, man. And at the end of 2022, could we do this again?
Sounds good, buddy.
All right, brother. You have a good rest of your night.
You as well.
All right. Bye, buddy.
Bye.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that episode of ARCA Racing Podcast Driver Interviews. Tony Cosentino is on this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. A real journeyman who knows his craft. He'll be racing in ARCA. He'll be racing in the late model series. Cheer him on next year. Cheer on Fast Track Racing Andy Hillenberg. Shout out to his sponsors. And we'll just see how 2022 goes for him. So thank you guys for tuning in. Follow me at Start and Park Car. Follow ARCA Racing and follow Tony Cosentino on Twitter. Link is down in the description. You guys have a good rest of your night. So long, guys.